Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts. Hey there, true believers. Andy Nelson here from the Marvel Movie Minute podcast with the rest of the team.
Pete Wright,
Kyle Olson,
Rob Cabasco,
and Matthew Fox.
This is the podcast where we dissect the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time, exploring every detail of this epic superhero franchise.
From the nods to the comics to the electrifying performances, we've had a blast diving into every aspect of the MCU. Right from the start, we're talking about them having to earn their wizards. And I think we've made a good argument that they do.
We have our favorite recurring bits, like 5 stars for Spar, because every character deserves their moment in the spotlight.
Ooh, Kyle, speaking of spotlights, did you know that the term advertisement actually comes from the Latin advertere, meaning to turn toward? That's exactly the kind of fascinating detail we love to uncover on the show.
But it's not all trivia and recurring bits. We also dive deep into the ethical dilemmas our heroes face. Loki alone provides enough material for a whole season on superhero morality. Not to mention that I can't wait till we get to Civil War.
In our season looking at Iron Man 3, we're going to mix things up a bit.
That's right, Rob and I are your guides, but instead of our usual minute-by-minute format, we dive into 5 minutes of the film in each weekly episode.
It's a totally new approach, but one that still allows us to explore all the depth and detail that makes these movies so special, even if Iron Man 3 isn't all that special.
Hold on, that's where you're wrong. Extremist, Shane Black.
Yeah, would you like to look at the Mandarin and Maya Hansen? Mm-hmm.
So whether you're a die-hard Marvel fan or just love deep dives into movies, there's something for everyone on Marvel Movie Minute.
Suit up and join us on this epic audio adventure. You can find us at truestory.fm or by searching Marvel Movie Minute on your favorite podcatcher.
Because in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, every minute is packed with excitement.
Enough said.
I hope you like mustard. Bye.
Do you ever get to the end of a movie where the hero had to make a difficult choice, and all you want to do is talk to people about whether they made the right one?
Watch an episode of Star Trek and spend the next few days thinking about the rights of synthetic beings like Data and the Doctor. I became a co-host of the Superhero Ethics podcast because I love those questions, and the people at Wendy's are tired of hearing me talk about them.
We're not a review podcast. We're more interested in questions the characters face and how different works approach similar questions. Sometimes we'll even go behind the camera, talking about how on-screen media gets made and how that affects what questions get asked, which ones don't, and who gets to ask them.
We hit a wide range of media: movies, TV shows, books, and video games.
You can find us under Superhero Ethics wherever you listen to podcasts or go to theethicalpanda.com. But you can also do far more. We love listener feedback and we'll happily talk about your questions or comments on air, and members get special bonus content.
# not sponsored by Wendy's.
I'm Pete Wright.
I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the next reel. When the movie ends,
Our conversation begins.
the sum of all fears is over. I work at the CIA, and the director asked me at the last minute to come with him to Russia to do a nuclear arms inspection. Hello?
Hello, Kathy.
I can't make it.
Where are you going?
I can't tell you that.
Jack, tell her where you're going. In fact, tell her who you work for. She'll be impressed.
I work for the CIA, and the director asked me at the last minute to come with him to Russia to do a nuclear arms inspection.
That is so lame.
Hello?
You're about to breathe air that's way over your pay grade, so listen up. You're going to be asked for analysis and advice, so be sure you know what you're talking about. Welcome to the CIA, sport.
At a time of increasing tension,
According to this, there are 17 senior scientists on duty today.
I only count 14.
deliberate deception,
3 Russian scientists are missing. I need to know where they are.
Suit up. I don't go on the missions. I just write reports. So write a report about it. I'm an analyst.
I'm not trained for this.
Just be my eyes and ears.
I can't be with somebody who's going to keep their life hidden from me, Jack.
I will not let that happen.
and new enemies.
You don't fight Russia and America. You get Russia and America to fight each other and destroy each other.
Only 2 men suspect the truth.
What's a South African doing in the Ukraine with 3 Russian scientists in a crate from Israel?
Fair guess they're building a bomb.
From the electrifying bestseller by Tom Clancy.
The crate was put on a cargo freighter headed for the East Coast.
What? And the producer of Clear and Present Danger and Patriot games.
It's Ryan! The bomb is in play!
Russians.
It wasn't the Russians.
Morgan Freeman.
It adds up. You just don't like what it adds up to.
If you strike against the Russians, you sacrifice your moral authority.
We have reason to believe the bomb was the work of terrorists, not the Russians.
Get him. Mr. President, they're scrambling their fighters.
My orders are to get the right information to the people who make the decision.
Put it in your report.
And if you shut me out, your family and 25 million other families will be dead.
The Sum of All Fears. Directed by Phil Alden Robinson.
It's good, right? It's good. Some of the stuff is good.
Yeah. Some of the stuff, yeah. There's a lot of stuff in here I liked.
Totally. This is what I love about this movie. In the special features, because Clancy was on this movie as an advisor, right? And he introduces himself as the author of the books the book that was ignored.
Right.
It's not, I mean, it certainly wasn't totally ignored, but it does put us in a very different place in the Jack Ryan universe, because this movie starts over his relationship as he is a young Jack Ryan, unknown to everybody. And in the book, it is actually a sequel to Clear and Present Danger, and it picks up where he's the deputy director of intelligence, and he has 2 kids, and he has a wife who's a doctor, and everything's fine, just like we remember from Clear and Present Danger. So it's a very different character. This starts our rebootflation, where we're just going to try with other actors to create a new franchise out of Jack Ryan, and we're going to keep trying like hell until something sticks. That's the era that we're in.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they had been already wanting to do this with Harrison Ford. Like, he had actually said in 99, 5 years after his last round of Jack Ryan, which is actually a lot closer to when the film actually comes out, saying, yeah, hey, the next book is being worked on right now, Sum of All Fears, and hopefully we get to a place where that'll be the next movie. He had a contract for doing it 3 times. And apparently Ford dropped out because he and Phillip Noyce could not figure out the script problems with this. This book, they definitely changed it. There's a lot more going on with what's going on in Israel and Palestine. Like, that whole section of the Middle East is a big chunk of the book. And all of that pretty much gets dropped, other than the initial finding, or the initial bomb that gets kind of stuck in the ground and then found. That's largely all we get of that part of the story. And I don't know, like, Akiva Goldsman, who was working on the script at the time, was trying to make it work. Ford was frustrated. Noyce was frustrated. They both dropped out. Like I said, or I joked a few episodes ago, what did Harrison Ford have to do instead of fulfilling his contract for the 3-picture deal that he had? I don't know. Maybe it was 6 days, 7 nights. That joke just doesn't get old to me.
It really doesn't. No, it's classic, like a fine wine.
But yeah, so Phillip Noyce also pulled out, and then they said, let's reboot. And that was the turning point of all of this. And so I'm curious if using the opportunity to reboot helped them find the path for the script. Like, that's the thing that I find so curious about it. Like, what was the decision to... I'm assuming they went young because there always is an assumption in Hollywood that younger actors sell better. And maybe that's just kind of like the theory that they had. Let's just go young. So Ben Affleck was offered the job. Interestingly, while he was filming Pearl Harbor with Alec Baldwin, he told Alec Baldwin gave him his blessing. He also called Harrison Ford, who also gave him his blessing, and then he was attached to the picture. And then they found the director. So this was a little bit different in how everything went. So, but yeah, it's an interesting, like, 8-year shift from the last Jack Ryan for them to say, yes, we're moving forward with Harrison Ford. We're going to make it where he's kind of continuing where things left off. Hard left turn. Let's dump all that and let's just reboot it with a younger actor. And that's kind of the shift. It's strange, especially also then going with Phil Alden Robinson, who isn't a very busy director. He's only directed 6 films.
It's diplomatic.
Yeah, 6 films. And this was, In the Mood was his first, then Field of Dreams, which we've talked about on the show in one of our baseball series, Sneakers, Freedom Song, The Sum of All Fears, The Angriest Man in Brooklyn.
We talked about sneakers too, didn't we?
We didn't talk about sneakers.
Well, in my head we did.
I know. It's when we always feel like it seems like we should have.
Yeah. Yeah, not busy. And yet, like you said at the beginning, there are things like, I think this movie is easily dismissed in the canon of Jack Ryan, because in institutional sort of memory, this is the sort of lesser of the Jack Ryans. It didn't have the star power of Chris Pine, who was at his kind of peak in the following film. That was a showpiece. That was going to be a showpiece. It just felt like something that was less than. I remember not being super into going to see it. Something about Ben Affleck I didn't believe could pull off the role. Something about it just didn't feel right. And yet, this movie has some things going for it that I think are great. One of the things that's most interesting to me about this movie is the bold choice that they make in adapting the book, where Jack Ryan, ultimately, Jack Ryan as kind of the avatar for institutional intelligence, fails, right? This is a movie about a glorious failure. The fact that the bomb gets into the country and is blown up. Like, we don't see that in Jack Ryan movies. Even in Shadow Recruit, right? The supposedly, the bold alternative film, they blow up the big bomb in the water. This movie, they kill a lot of people. This is a movie about moving through the political morass of grief. And I think that part of it is fascinating to me. It's fascinating.
The back half of the film, after the bomb blows up the stadium in Baltimore, and a large chunk of Baltimore, we're left to assume, really was the surprising part of this film that made it work so much better for me than I was expecting. That was the thing that I remembered, like a bomb goes off in America, but I really didn't remember much else about it. It's interesting to watch Ryan working in the first part of the film, trying to uncover all of the information so that he can help. And, it was great to see, as the analyst Jack Ryan in the film, he is constantly calling his team back in the analyst office to have them help find information. Like, that's kind of what he's doing. And I liked that. Like, we're getting some interesting sides of this Jack Ryan as he's kind of figuring things out. And what I love the most is once the bomb goes off, which affects everybody through the rest of the story, it's really this escalation, this game of chicken that ends up happening between the US president and the Russian president as they are afraid to back down, or they're afraid to be seen as weak. And so they kind of feel this need to constantly just keep doing these little escalations, leading to potential actual nuclear holocaust, while Jack is simply trying to get the right information into the hands of the people that need it. And I was like, this is actually a really interesting Jack Ryan story. And the way that it played out was great. I enjoyed everything in the second half, except for the fact that Jack really seemed really good at getting into the right places at the right times. And that was like such a Hollywood screenplay formula. And with Ben Affleck doing it, it just ended up feeling less than, because it kind of was frustrating. But I love what they were trying to do there.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And I agree with you. And I think maybe that's one of the sort of pressure points on the film, is how naturally and repeatedly Affleck is able to get into these places. But I do think they put up significant walls and allow us to really question the intelligence and diplomacy machine by way of this movie, by not allowing Ryan, an intelligence operative, to get intelligence to the people who need it. That, after the bomb goes off, we talk about accidental patriotic hero tropes. The fact that Ryan spends most of his time just trying to get a message through to the right people is the intensity, is the action of this film, right? The sequence in this movie that is the Ritter-Ryan computer sequence is the Ryan, what's his name, Kieran Hines, Nemerov sequence, when they're all talking directly to each other around the president. I thought that was a fantastic sequence. I really enjoyed that, the way we left the president, President Fowler and his team on Air Force One suddenly out of the loop. I thought that was great because they just wouldn't pick up the phone.
Or when they did, it was Philip Baker Hall, who was
a
you're
jerk.
The guy who's he was one of the people who's totally ready to attack.
Yeah. So I think the instrument of politics in this movie is actually is quite good and intense, and it works. That stuff plays.
And it's also nice to see how they paint the relationship of all of the people in the president's circle. You've got people who aren't necessarily agreeing with the actions. You've got people that are hardcore pushing the actions. And the president is listening to them all and trying to weigh his best options for what makes the most sense. And that's another thing I found interesting and gratifying, is that it wasn't all ritters and cutters whispering in his ear. You actually had some people who were like, I don't think that's the way we should go with this. I think that, maybe we should take a little more time and do a little deeper analysis in this before we make that decision. And then you had the other ones who were just like, no. Like, you actually had those arguments, and that felt more realistic to me. And I enjoyed the way that it played out, especially in this high tense situation that was the national response to a situation like this.
Yeah, right. And it does communicate a sense of hopelessness in this kind of a situation. And I think the movie puts a nice frame around the fact that even in these dire situations, all the players are human, right? All the players are reacting from emotion and from their place of emotion. And I think, James Cromwell is a superlative performer. And it's funny because in my memory of Clear and Present Danger, Moffat is actually Cromwell. Don't Bark at Me at a Junkyard Dog is actually Cromwell delivering that. That's in my head. But, I forget that he was actually in this movie, not the other one. I think he is so good at communicating that space between diplomacy and just straight up rage. He's terrific at it. Morgan Freeman plays our Greer allegory. He's CIA Director William Cabot, but befriends Ryan early on. Does not give Morgan Freeman much of a career in Jack Ryan movies.
No, sadly, it doesn't.
Gets very much a one and done.
Yeah, but it plays well, and I liked his role, and I liked Cromwell's role. Like, they both work well in the roles they're given. Cromwell, for my money, the moment that sold me on him was when he's just like reflecting in this moment, and he's just like, I've always wanted to be president my whole adult life, but this is going to be my legacy. I'm the guy who pushed the button. And you can see how that weighs on him, but then he also has to just look at the realities of like, what do I have to do? I think that's so interesting, especially then as the guy who refuses to listen to Ryan later in the film. And he's just like, they had their chance. Like, that was like kind of the most shocking. He's like, they had their chance too late, even though they might have all the right information. And that is that line that you always worry about a presidential character crossing, where they stop listening and they're so far down the road that they're already on that it's just like, there's no brakes anymore. I've just got to keep going. It's interesting to see how that plays with that character, to the point where it almost frustrated me a little bit when he kind of flipped so much at the end there after Nemerov backs down. He's just like, can I finally talk to the guy? It's just like, well, you weren't being a good listener. And I don't know, the way that played felt a little cutesy, like Hollywood cutesy. Yeah,
for sure.
And Morgan Freeman, though, his character never felt Hollywood cutesy. Like, he felt like it just played well the way the Cabot played throughout.
Yeah. Liev Schreiber.
He's playing Willem Dafoe.
He's playing Willem Dafoe, playing John Clark. I really like this. I really do. I like this guy so much. He's so good, and I think largely underappreciated in these small parts. And he's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it plays fine. I guess for my money, it's a role that works well for him. but it also is just pretty, I don't know if one note is the right way to describe it, but it's like he's good at his job, he's very sly and sneaky, and we watch him be sly and sneaky, being good at his job as he goes and finds things out or does things, right? That's the only thing like with him that I wish that there had been a little more meat. Like that's why I think between the two, I prefer Dafoe, because Dafoe actually is betrayed. And there's an interesting element that we get to watch with that character as he has to figure out like why and who. And I think that's really interesting. With Liev Schreiber, he's just great at playing the character. So I love watching him on screen, but also it's like he's not given much more than, although it is fun to watch him babysitting Ryan when Ryan has to show up.
Yeah. I heard you took my ticket to the correspondence dinner. That was fun. I like this guy so much as a performer. I would have loved to have seen him playing the part in Willem Dafoe's stead, right? I like him as John Clark. It reads as a more of a John Clark to me in the books. I think he's just an interesting guy.
Is he real prominent in the books as the character?
He's more prominent.
Okay. Has he shown up in the TV show?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
I may be supplanting that with my love of Schreiber, though. So I'm going to do some real-time research.
Okay. Well, I do enjoy him. I think that he's fun to watch on screen, and he plays this guy who does all these covert ops, leading up to when he finally tracks down Colm Fiore, who shows up here, tracks down him and has his final little hit. Yeah, and Colm Fiore, I think, was one of the few who comes back in a different role in Shadow Recruit.
Yeah, which is funny. Clark is not in the series. I'm thinking of a different character whose name is not Clark.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's essentially Clark.
But he is prominent in the books. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meanwhile, back to Colm Fiore.
What I like about the story here is it doesn't feel like Patriot games where we have the IRA, but then we're really dealing with this little terrorist faction that happens to have ties to the IRA. This feels like, it's just this offshoot group who's really just doing what they can to play Russia against the US and kind of cause this global meltdown. It doesn't seem smart, honestly. Like if you're going to push two countries to nuclear war, it really kind of destroys the planet. It's really like, at what end is your
they're neo-Nazis, right? Like
yeah, they're right.
Little
exactly.
forethought.
Yeah.
Lots of brandy snifters, little forethought.
But and that's an element that I think could have been more interesting if, like in the book, there's a lot going on about Israel-Palestine and the conflict there, and some of those people start working with this neo-Nazi guy to do all of this, but really it's them that are pushing all of this and these two sides to kind of bring the two of them down. How does that play for you with the neo-Nazi guy as kind of our...
I don't care for it. The book, they were Islamic terrorists, and I feel like that's when Clancy introduces himself as the guy that the book ignores or that the movie ignores, that's what it's... I think that's a large part of what it's talking about, because I think the idea of making it this cabal of neo-Nazi terrorists is so Bond. It's so James Bond. And I feel like the only thing that would have made it more on the nose is if the spiky-haired guy was actually stroking a cat. Like, it just didn't... I thought it was a cheap effort to stay out of any specific political headwinds and at the time. And I think it is worse for the movie. It makes the movie feel more Hollywood and less bold. And the movie is full of otherwise bold choices. And I think that this is one that where it breaks.
And that's my hunch of the struggle that they had with the script, trying to figure out what to do with the script, because it is pushing buttons for a lot of people. I mean, right now we're still in the middle of it, and it's constantly pushing buttons for everybody in all sorts of different ways. And so I think it was probably a big struggle trying to figure out how do we involve Israel-Palestine conflict, Islamic terrorists into this story that is not going to just piss people off. And they probably said, you know what, let's just like neo-Nazis, to the point where Roger Ebert in his review said it's just politically correct. Like, using neo-Nazis is nothing but just a political correct villain that they're trying to come up with so they don't offend anybody. And that's how it feels, you know, by shifting to that and having Colm Fiore even being his liaison. It's like, oh, this total other waspy guy as your other big bad.
Yeah, I don't think it plays, because the movie is already dealing with, you know, the specter of terrorism. But I do think that the book had the book and the story in the book is tied up in the mechanics of the Islamic story of terrorism. And I think pulling that out just made it feel empty. It is an emptier fake thing.
Yeah, and to that end, it does become, as much as I really enjoy what's going on in the back half of the film, and I mean the front half to a certain extent. I mean, I do enjoy this film. I actually found it to be pretty solid, but it did end up feeling like you kind of almost forget that this neo-Nazi guy is a villain, right? It's kind of like this weirdly milquetoast guy who just, we see him pop in once in a while, may as well be twirling his mustache, and then we go off to watch some other things. And like, I mean, he's working with, like, there's a Russian general that he's working with, like, he's working with his team, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, he doesn't feel like, in the end, the big villain of the film. It's kind of strange the way that it plays.
Yeah, right. That's actually probably the biggest point. It doesn't feel like a big villain.
Yeah.
It's not a big villain. It's a weird little villain.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, to that end, I guess it gives us the thrilling back and forth going on between the two presidents, and Jack Ryan trying to solve that. Like, that actually works exceptionally well.
Yeah. But those two presidents could have been brought to the brink by any other malcontent. We just chose an empty one. And I think that's the one that makes this movie lesser than. It doesn't have a substantive villain that gives us meat for that final confrontation, or that final intellectual sort of technological standoff.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of frustrating to that end, the way that it all plays out.
Yeah.
What do you think of the way that the sequences, the action sequences play with Ryan? We've kind of talked about the balance between as we've gone through this series, the scenes of analysis, the scenes of action. We've had some fascinating scenes in the films where you've got CIA work done by the analysts, like watching bombs go off via satellite or whatever. This film, we're not necessarily getting as much of that, but we do have the action sequences, like when he's along with Liev Schreiber going over and walking through the old warehouse, things like that. How does this film, like, where do you feel the highlights are between the scenes of analysis and the scenes of action?
I still like the scenes of analysis better, right? I like the idea that in this movie, because of where he is in his career, he's working much more with the team. Like, there is actual team dynamic in the dialogue between him and his buddies, and trying to call each other. And I like that stuff a lot. We don't have any strong sequences of analysis that reveal something grand. It always feels like everybody on this team is super hamstrung, right, by some other barrier to getting their job done. And they seem to run into that around every corner. I don't know how to get a hold of that person. I struggle with it because I don't obviously work in the federal government. I don't work in the Department of Intelligence, but this seems to be the worst case of all government operation, that nobody can talk to each other. Like, is that the thematic message that underlies everything here? It's not that people don't like talking to each other or are ideologically opposed to each other. It's that they literally can't find one another.
I mean, are you talking specifically about post-bomb when the president goes off in Air Force One?
There are sequences where he's like, he talks to his buddy. I can't find him, but he's talking to his buddy in a cubicle, and he says, "You need to get that person on the phone with me. I don't know how to find that person." Those things happen in this, and I found it so funny. I found it so funny that they created such a, like, I guess that's the major theme: nuclear proliferation, international relations, terrorism, the role of intelligence in diplomacy, and administrivia. Like, we just don't, none of our phones talk to each other.
Right. It is kind of funny that it seems that they really struggle with that, to your point. So,
well, it was funny to me.
For me, I guess, like, I like watching that, again, that back half with the analytics and everything. The action sequences, I mean, it's hard to argue how well that bomb sequence holds up. Like, that was a real surprise that they do pull that off, and it plays it plays so well with the president and his whole caravan, all those cars getting flipped down the road, Jack in the helicopter and everything, Kathy in the hospital. Like, it works really well to kind of watch all of that play. The stuff that doesn't work so well is like Jack trying to track down the bad guys at the dock. I was trying to figure out why the bad guys were still there. Like, why is that guy still hiding out at the dock? Just leave. Like, that made no sense to me at all. And it just was like, this is kind of dumb. They just needed Jack to be in a fight with somebody at that point in the film, I guess.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Otherwise, I think I enjoy the way things play out across the film. Nothing is as standout as the bomb for me. Like, that really is kind of just the highlight of everything. It's just really a big surprise halfway through the film. It's not even like a climactic moment.
No,
they drop like this small nuclear bomb in Baltimore, and it played really well.
In the book, it's Denver.
Yeah, I saw it at the Super Bowl. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing that it was funny, as I noticed as I was watching all these different Ryan properties, is he kind of becomes an expert in whatever country they need him to for the story. Like, he's
good point.
Russia and this captain in the first film. By the time we get to this film, he speaks Ukrainian as he and Liev Schreiber are talking to these two Ukrainian, security people. And he's just like, yeah, I'm an expert in Ukraine or whatever. And then he's back to Russia, but now he's an expert in Nemerov guy, or no, this film, he's the expert in Nemerov. Like, why was that a guy that he had been studying? So it's funny how these conveniences end up becoming such big plot points in the stories.
Well, I mean, I agree with you because it appears like a convenience, but I feel like an analyst in the CIA would have a wider scope of awareness of the important people in Russian politics than just one.
Yeah, right. I know.
Like, they say, he's the president, after all. I think Ryan would have more than a passing affinity with his name.
And now in the TV show, it's Yemen, and so it's just, it's funny to see them play all of this. Yeah.
I do think it's interesting. Liev Schreiber, I always assume that he's one of those, like, what's her name from that 70s show who was married to that real tall guy from Punk'd? Anyway, she's really interesting to me because
Mila Kunis and Ashton
Mila
Kutcher?
Mila Kunis. So Mila Kunis is really interesting to me because you watch her go on a press tour, and she goes on press tours like all over Russia and Ukraine because her like native language is Russian or Ukrainian, and so watching her on YouTube, she just totally holds her own in all these things. I have in my head the same feeling about Liev Schreiber, that there's something in my head that told me his native language was actually Russian. It's not, but he did learn to speak Russian phonetically for his role in Defiance. And apparently he got so good that he holds his own against seasoned Russian stage actors now with his Russian language. I think that's cool.
Yeah, very cool. And interestingly, his background is also Ukrainian. His maternal grandfather was from the Ukraine, which is probably why you think that.
Yeah, I think that's probably that is probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I like him.
I do like him.
That is a show. His show, Ray Donovan, is a show that is right up my alley. I watched one episode of it and I immediately put it on my list as a show that I would love. And I just never got back to it. Now there's like 80 episodes. I need to, that's one that I really want to watch because I like the guy so much. It feels like that's a property I should be more familiar with.
Interesting. I've never seen that show.
Oh, yeah.
What is he, a doctor in that show? I don't even know. Oh, here you go. He's a professional fixer who arranges bribes, payoffs, threats, crime scene cleanup, and other illegal activity to protect his usually celebrity clients. Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's a fixer. So good. What a fun role for him to play.
Interesting. Well, he is great. I'm trying to think, where would I have first seen him?
Scream.
No, Mixed Nuts, I guess. That was his first film role. Yeah. It was the Nora Ephron movie with, I think it was Steve Martin and Rita Wilson. Not great. I didn't like the movie at all. But apparently that's where he got started. Yeah, Steve Martin, Madeline Kahn, Robert Klein, Anthony LaPaglia, Juliette Lewis, Rob Reiner, Adam Sandler, Rita Wilson, and Liev Schreiber. In his film debut.
That's really interesting. I've seen the movie. I don't remember it.
It's crap. If you want to watch a crappy Christmas movie, put that one on.
I probably, there's another one, the same year that he came out is Cotton Weary. He was in Ransom with Mel Gibson. So I would have seen him in that. So it was in the mid 90s. I didn't see, I guess Mixed Nuts was only 94. He's in a lot of stuff in the 90s. He became kind of that face.
Right. Especially because he was one of those indie and Hollywood actors. He did a lot of indie movies in his early, Mixed Nuts was a great Hollywood start. And then he went indie, Party Girl, Big Night, The Day Trippers, Walking and Talking, and then also Scream and Ransom. So kind of just all over the place with his career.
Interesting, man. I could do a Liev Schreiber series. I don't know what those would be.
He was the Storm King in My Little Pony, the movie. Did you know that?
That should be at the top of our list.
Oh, yes. And of course, he was in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as Kingpin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I do enjoy him. He's great. Would he work better for you as Clark or Ryan?
No, Ryan, 100%. I would have traded Ryan out for Schreiber any day.
But is that because it's Ben Affleck?
Probably. There's part of that. I did not connect with Ben Affleck's Ryan, and I think Ben Affleck has some really, it's so interesting to look at movies that, deal with international operations. For example, Argo. We mentioned Argo, I think, a couple of weeks ago. What a great movie that is, and a great movie for Ben Affleck. And why don't I connect with Affleck as Jack Ryan? I just don't.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because he's all of, he's 30 years old in this film.
Yeah.
Which, how old remind me again how old Baldwin was in Red October? Let's see, he was 58. He was 32.
In the same ballpark.
Yeah, in the same ballpark. There's something about Affleck that I think in this period especially, and he's had plenty of jokes about his acting himself. He acknowledges that he can be kind of cheesy when it comes to his acting performances and everything. And he's done things like Gigli and, Daredevil and things that are, may not play as well, but he's certainly been in a variety of things. This was right after he did Pearl Harbor, which I think got a lot of flack because it was Michael Bay trying to do something serious, and it just came across as just a cheesy Michael Bay movie that had no serious acknowledgement of what he was actually of anything having to do with Pearl Harbor and memorializing everything that people had done there. But same year, he also was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And that's where I think when it comes to Affleck, especially in this period, I can enjoy him in things like Reindeer Games and Changing Lanes, but I just don't take him seriously, And even in his action movies that he was doing in this period, like Daredevil's right afterward, Armageddon a few years before, like I can enjoy an Armageddon, but I don't feel like Affleck is like the serious action hero. Like he's kind of the fun popcorn action hero. And I think that was for me the line that didn't work well with him here is like he's kind of still the Armageddon popcorn action hero, and I didn't take him seriously in Pearl Harbor, and I don't really take him seriously here. And that's the struggle I have with Affleck, especially at this point in his career, that I struggle buying him as someone serious to buy into.
That's really interesting because, like, the first movie that comes up for me is Argo 2012. Like, the movies of the 90s Affleck are not movies that I feel like I took seriously really at all. It wasn't until, I guess, did he age into his parts, right? Did he age into the experience that I ended up liking with him? I loved Gone Girl. I thought he did a great job in Gone Girl. That was a movie that I feel like was very much him. Argo, obviously. The Town, again, 2010, right? Like, that's a really interesting thing. Good Will Hunting as the side chucklehead character, he was fine.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Right. And I think this is why, in Hollywood, Tommy, we've talked about how, Tommy Metz III, who's been on a number of our shows, happened to be working on John Woo's film with him, Paycheck. And his career had kind of so fallen off a cliff at that point that when they put the movie poster out, they didn't even feature his face because they couldn't, with everything after Gigli and everything else. So this is just right before that cliff. And it's just like he couldn't quite get there. And I think that's the struggle I have.
Yeah, I think so too. Though interesting that, Gigli, of course, so IMDb scores. Gigli's a 2.6. Okay. That's a objectively rough movie. Daredevil, 5.3. Not all his fault, that movie. There are some interesting things, but largely not great. Paycheck is a 6.3. I actually have fond memories of that movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah. I mean, It helps that it's Philip K. Dick as the source material. I think that really gives it something more to do. But I think that was the struggle with Paycheck is he'd already gone off the cliff. And so it wasn't going to help that movie at all.
No. Right. But everything after that, like, State of Play, He's Just Not Into You, The Town, Company Men, like, these are all movies that are all in that, like, I'm a middling to fair star until The Accountant, which sort of blows up. Like, that was kind of, I remember that as a thing where, I need to start watching all the Ben Affleck movies again because I really enjoyed The Accountant. That's a 7.3.
I never saw that one. Okay. I missed
What?
It. Yeah, I missed it.
Andy.
I know. I guess I need to put that on my list.
I don't even know what to do right now.
I remember the film coming out, but I guess I kind of forgot about it. I think it was one of those periods where there were a lot of other movies coming out and I just was watching those and missed that one.
One of those periods where a lot of movies were coming out.
Yeah, like all the time.
What is this pablum you're dishing right now? I don't understand it.
It's my blanket excuse to say I missed something. Sorry,
there are so many movies. There are so many movies.
Well, to the point where, I mean, even in Ridley Scott's The Last Duel, like, I almost didn't want to watch that movie because his haircut looked so stupid in the trailer.
Oh my God.
And then I watched it and I'm like, wow, he was actually really good. I would be fine if he got a supporting actor nomination for his role. Like, he was so good in that movie. And that's what's funny about him.
Wasn't he blonde in that movie?
Yeah, he's got like a blonde, weird bowl cut thing going on. I don't know.
Weird.
And like a weird little blonde goatee too. Like, it was just a strange thing for his count. But the movie is just like, he's great in it. The movie's great. So it's definitely worth checking out. But
for sure. And Jodie Comer, I mean, go see that movie for many reasons. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't know whose haircut was worth, though. Matt Damon's haircut is not great.
No, they both struggle with their hair.
It's not a good hair movie. Jodie Comer has great hair. Okay.
Just real quick, Bridget Moynihan is Kathy. Well, we talked about this in our pre-show chat for members. As far as who's given the least to do, she's just above Gates McFadden.
You think?
I mean, they have their relationship.
She's actively in the hospital. Like, she gets blown up in glass.
Well, Ann Archer gets in a car accident. Ann Archer, she has her things. Like, I feel like they're pretty comparable. I mean, I enjoy her in the film. I think their relationship is cute and everything, you know. And they're not married because they've just gotten engaged. That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the film, because the reveal of Spinnaker, the guy who was Morgan Freeman's inside man, already knew that they were engaged.
Hours later.
That was the whole gag with the end of the film. But she knows he's in the CIA. Now I'm trying to question all this, because that was the whole thing that was playing in
Shadow Recruit,
that he couldn't tell her he was in the CIA until they were married. So he was pushing for marriage, but she was convinced he was having an affair, so didn't want to do it. And
yeah. And that's why in Shadow Recruit, we get the scene on the plane where he says, tell her.
No,
but we have essentially the same scene, right? Yeah. He's on the plane, and it's Morgan Freeman who tells him to tell her. And she says, that's the stupidest thing you've ever said.
Yeah.
All right.
Does it happen in both films?
Is it possible that it happens in both films?
I don't think so. I think it's this film that it happens. I know it's this film that happens, and I'm trying to remember how it plays in Shadow Recruit.
No, because she shows up in Shadow Recruit. She shows up in Russia in his hotel room,
and he tells her, and she's like, "Oh, thank God!" Right?
Yes, you're not having an affair.
Right.
I'm glad we put that together, because we were feeling old just now.
Yeah, I know.
That was rough. Okay. You know, I think that makes for a good bit in this movie. She is like, again, what would you want her to do in this movie?
I know. That's the thing, is like, it doesn't make sense to tie her into the story like in Shadow Recruit, where she gets wrapped up into kind of like being taken hostage by the villain and all that sort of stuff. This film, I guess it's fine. She ends up in the hospital that gets hit by the bomb, and then is going around helping people. And so it plays fine. I guess it plays fine. It's cute. I don't know what else I would want in the relationship. And to that end, I guess it's fine. But again, I still don't think it's more than Gates. Or it's a bit more than Gates, but that's about it.
It's when the Gates was in it for less. I mean, you could count Gates' participation in the number of frames.
Oh, I know. Gates is at the bottom, far down.
Yeah.
And then Bridget's way up here, but she's still
way up. But she's still the bottom.
She's the next,
the bottom of the top, right? Like, right,
exactly.
Okay. The problem with this movie is not what they did or didn't do with Bridget Moynihan. It's the fact that this movie comes out in what did we say? 2002?
2002, yeah.
And we hadn't yet crested the point where there would be women on the president's plane with him of substance, right? Ron Rifkin or Philip Baker Hall or Bruce McGill, one of them should have been played by a substantial agent female performer, right? That or two or three of them. Like, there should have been balance elsewhere in the movie to demonstrate that the movie is aware that women exist and are politically savvy and would know how to handle some of this scenario. That's a problem.
Well, it's a problem, and it's a problem that they themselves make because, and I don't know, maybe it's just because they're adapting it from the book, but just as an example, Air Force One came out 5 years before this, and the vice president is a woman. Glenn Close is the vice president in that film. So they were already starting to make that shift in stories. It's just, I think it has to be because it's a Clancy book, and they're just trying to stay true to the source material in some capacities.
Which is ridiculous. Like
especially,
especially here, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
So,
Kieran Hines is our Russian president, and I just have to go yet again to the world of casting people who have to bring upon different accents. He is Irish, and of course, here he is playing Russian. How does he do as the Russian president?
I didn't question it.
I didn't
question it. It's amazing. I think very highly of Kieran Hines, and I think he does very, very well in this role. And apparently he learned the dialect very, very quickly. He learned all of his Russian in reportedly less than 2 weeks. He is a professional, singular professional talent. He's really good. He's a certain kind of character actor, but I'm always excited to see him show up and stuff.
Yeah. I hear you there. To that end, Alan Bates, like, I love seeing Alan Bates pop up and stuff, even when he's doing his little faux German accent here. It's just, again, it's a real frustration that Dressler is such a snooze as the villain of the piece.
Yeah, really is. It really is. I think that's one of the things that just lets the air out of this movie. It doesn't have a fully built antagonist. Even when the movie does go all the way and blows up the stadium. That's a big thing to do.
It is a
big,
huge thing
horrific
to do.
thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting. We should just mention, like, this movie came out 9 months after September 11th. And a lot of people were like, too soon. You shouldn't be releasing this movie. Did you reflect on that at all when you watched it this time? Do you remember thinking anything about it when you watched it then?
I don't. I don't remember thinking about it. I reflected on it this time because I read that they made the decision to change from Israeli or from Islamic terrorists to neo-Nazis before September 11th, right? The movie was already well into production. And so I thought that was just a curious case of synchronicity that they got themselves out of that particular potential sticky PR wicket. But I don't remember. I'm sure I thought about it. I know that there was a lot of discussion around it at the time, but I don't have a sense memory of feeling strongly one way or another about this movie other than look at what could happen. See,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember people talking about that, but I guess I didn't think too much of it. If anything, likely in the theater, it felt a little more visceral and real to have that happening, especially because it was portrayed fairly realistically, or just seriously. Especially now, I didn't feel like there was any ill intent to or using that situation to promote the movie or anything like that.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts on this one?
That's what I got, man. Good movie.
Good movie, yeah. Good movie. Not necessarily the greatest, but still a good movie.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back, but first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Del Nova, Jacob Pietras, Marco Martini, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. Attention agents, this is Hawkeye with an encrypted transmission. We have new intel on a premium service that will upgrade your film tracking capabilities to elite status. Codename, Letterboxd Pro. By accessing thenextreel.com/letterboxd, you can upgrade to receive top-secret personalized dossiers on your all-time and annual viewing records. Hawk's Nest will feed you up-to-the-minute reports on when new targets arrive on streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and more. You'll have clearance to view friendlies' average ratings, allowing you to verify their trust level. Power privileges include profile pinning, list duplication, and tag managing for optimum operation. Perhaps most critically, upgrading to thenextreel.com/letterboxd will disable all third-party advertisement interference. Operate ad-free to focus on the mission. The upgrade cost is low, but understanding the advantages are extremely high value. If you want the best tactical intel on your next viewings, you need to enlist the full Pro Toolkit. Upgrade now to join our elite ops film unit. This channel will go dark in T-minus 10 seconds. Decide wisely. Sequels and remakes, Andy. I get a game now?
We're back to the video games, yes. Obviously, there will be sequels to this where we've got Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit and, of course, the TV show. But yes, this one goes back to the return of video games. Not since Hunt for Red October have we had one. This one is actually patterned after the Rainbow Six series of games, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. It's a tactical first-person shooter game. It's not quite as robust as the Rainbow Six series, but it is essentially that same sort of game. So there's 2 missions in it that they have you go on. So I don't know how good it was. I never played it. But yeah, that's the next in the line of the Jack Ryan games that we have.
All right, how to do it award season.
This one had 2 wins with 5 other nominations. At the Visual Effects Society Awards, it was nominated for Best Supporting Visual Effects in a Motion Picture, and it won. I was curious, Best Supporting Visual Effects, what does that mean? Well, it's opposite to Best Visual Effects in an effects-driven motion picture. This film really wasn't effects-driven. The one that won for that was Lord of the Rings: Two Towers. This film, it does have visual effects, but it's not the primary focus of the film. So it did win in that category. At the Political Film Society Awards, it was nominated for the PFS Award for Peace, but lost to The Quiet American. At the Black Reel Awards, Morgan Freeman was nominated for Theatrical Best Supporting Actor, but lost to Dennis Haysbert in Far From Heaven. And the DVD, at the DVD Exclusive Awards, it was nominated for Best Audio Commentary on a New Release, the commentary with Phil Alden Robinson and Tom Clancy having a conversation, but lost to Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Morgan Freeman lost to Dennis Haysbert. Is there ever a better matchup there? Like 2 iconic black men with iconic voices.
Right.
Going head to head, pipes to pipes.
Yeah. That was great.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah. I love it.
Those guys.
Yeah.
All right. I know you're eager to talk about this. How did it do at the box office?
Well, for Robinson's turn at bat, a full 8 years after the franchise's last entry, he had a budget of $68 million or $119.7 million in today's dollars, the second most expensive film in the franchise thus far. The movie opened May 31st, 2002 opposite Undercover Brother, bumping Star Wars Episode II Attack of the Clones out of the number 1 spot. It stayed at number 1 for 2 weeks and then in the top 10 for 6 weeks, going on to earn just under $119 million domestically and $75 million internationally for a total gross of $341.3 million in today's dollars. That lands it with an adjusted profit per finished minute of just under $1.8 million. Still profitable, but the least profitable of the franchise, and perhaps why we had a 12-year gap before the next entry would be made.
Affleck, he just wasn't able to. Like, what do you think it would have had to be to get another Affleck helmed, Ryan? 3?
I feel like yeah, I'd say they would have considered it if it was in at least 3 to 5.
Yeah.
Just showing people that there was room for interest, you know?
Yeah.
And honestly,
it's fascinating.
As somebody who hasn't read the books, like I also don't know what the next book is. So that could have also played into their conversations. As Mace Neufeld, who is the producer behind all of these, might have been trying to get the next one off the ground and just couldn't because it's another tricky one, kind of like the Cardinal of the Kremlin.
That's actually really interesting. What did come after Sum of All Fears? Was it? I mean, it wasn't Cardinal of the Kremlin. That wasn't.
No, that was the one. That was the third one that they skipped.
Yeah, they skipped it.
Yeah.
Without Remorse.
So yeah, I don't know, and well, because it's interesting because then Shadow Recruit wasn't based on a book. It was just kind of an amalgam of ideas from the books. And then I don't know enough about the TV show, but it's not like one book per season, is it? They're also just kind of, they're doing what the Shadow Recruit is and just kind of mixing it all up.
Right. But I mean, there are a lot of books that I have not read in this series.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, maybe they picked ideas from them again, but I think you're right. It feels more Rainbow Six-y, right? It feels like the most Rainbow Six of all of the and I'm comparing it to now the video game. It's just like Jack Ryan picks up a gun and is now first person shooter.
The new ones, you mean, like the show?
Yeah, the new ones.
Yeah. It seems that way. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I enjoyed this one. I don't love it, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I remembered. And I think it's all because everything going on in that last half of the film, even if I struggle with Ryan's convenient placement everywhere he goes.
But the fact that like he becomes a hero because he's in another helicopter crash. Like, I don't think they made enough of a deal about that. Like, I thought it was great that he just sort of accidentally is wandering through nuclear fallout. And there was never a question of maybe he should see a doctor at the end of the movie.
Right.
Like,
did they bring up the fact that he had been in a helicopter crash before? Because I was wondering if they were thinking that this was that helicopter crash. Like, were they reworking the script to make this the helicopter crash that pushed him into?
Point.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. Maybe this was the ceremonial helicopter crash.
Yeah, that's kind of how I interpreted it when I watched it.
If it wasn't a big enough deal.
No,
it was so dramatically overshadowed by nuclear bomb.
Right. What'd you do today? Oh, I got in a helicopter crash. Oh, well, yeah? Well, wait.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oy.
Okay.
Well, all right. Well, we'll be back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, kicking off our return to our heist film series, Basil Dearden's 1960 film, The League of Gentlemen.
They were all ex-army officers, but beyond that, they had only two things in common: a guilty past and a hopeless future. They had nothing to lose by joining the League of Gentlemen. Their leader had a plan which staggered their imaginations and sounded in each one of them a call to high adventure.
Think of it as a full-scale military operation. What chance has a bunch of ordinary civilians got against a trained, armed, and disciplined military unit? You were a soldier, man. You ought to know.
Doesn't look like no church magazine to me, Father. Look more like the police. Father?
Got it straight now, haven't you? Midnight tomorrow, London Airport. Drive carefully.
Look, I've got a bit of bad news for you, I'm afraid. Yes, the new Air Commander's on his way down for a surprise visit. Yeah. No, on his way. When we move in, we move against a target that is both surprised and defenseless.
Attention all operatives. This is a high-priority briefing from the Cinematic Intelligence Agency's lead analyst. Recent developments in the world of film have brought to light a new variable in our operations, the concept of the reboot. Reboots have the potential to reshape established cinematic narratives and alter the trajectory of entire franchises, making them a critical area of focus for our agency. Our latest intel suggests that the 2002 film The Sum of All Fears, a reboot of the Jack Ryan franchise, holds valuable insights into understanding the nature of this phenomenon. By analyzing the film and its implications, we can better assess the potential benefits and risks associated with reboots and develop strategies to navigate this uncharted territory. To support this vital mission, we've identified a crucial ally, The Next Reel, a highly respected organization dedicated to comprehensive film analysis. By securing a membership and infiltrating their ranks, you'll gain access to a wealth of exclusive content that will deepen your understanding of reboots and their impact on our cinematic landscape. As a member, you'll receive intel packages in the form of ad-free episodes, ensuring that your briefings remain uninterrupted and secure. You'll also gain access to their private communication channel, a Discord community where you can collaborate with fellow operatives to analyze the intricacies of cinematic reboots and share insight that will inform our strategic decisions. Operatives who demonstrate a strong commitment to this mission will be granted higher security clearance, unlocking extended episode editions that provide an even more in-depth analysis of the films we investigate. This sensitive information is available only to our most trusted agents. To join this elite task force, you'll need to allocate $5 per month or $55 per year from your operational budget. Navigate to truestory.fm/join and use the code word subscribe to activate your membership. Once inside, you'll be equipped with the knowledge and tools necessary to navigate the uncharted waters of cinematic reboots, guided by the expertise of the next reel. The world of film is an ever-evolving landscape, and reboots represent a new frontier that demand our attention and analysis. With the Next Reel's family of film podcasts as your strategic partner, you'll be prepared to approach this unknown variable with a keen eye and a strategic mindset, ready to uncover its true nature and potential impact on our operations. This concludes your briefing, Operative. Your mission is essential to the future of our cinematic intelligence efforts. Join the Next Reel's family of film podcasts and help us unravel the mysteries behind the sum of all fears and the broader implications of reboots in the world of film. Together, we will determine whether this phenomenon represents a threat to be countered or an opportunity to be embraced.
Letterboxd, Andy. Letterboxd.com/the next reel. That's where our HQ page is. How are you going to approach the sum of all fears, especially compared to our Hallelujah Reckoning with Clear and Present Danger last week?
I actually think, despite Affleck, that I like this more than Patriot Games, which I gave 3 stars. I'm going to say 3.5 stars and a heart. I feel like there was just interesting things going on here that made me more excited about the story despite Affleck in it.
I don't think I'm as high as you maybe, but I should be. But my no half stars rule is kicking in. The problem is that I did give 3 stars to Patriot Games. It makes me want to go give Patriot Games 2 stars. I think that's where I am. I think this is a 3-star movie, and Patriot Games has fallen in my esteem. So it would be Red October, Clear and Present, and then then Patriot Games.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's where we are.
It's okay to have them both at the same star and still have it rated higher than Patriot Games. I'm just making you feel comfortable with that.
I'll have to deal with that with my therapist.
Okay. Out of curiosity, where would Shadow Recruit fall on the list for you?
I think 3 stars.
Okay. I ended up at 2.5 with that one. I just get the action stuff.
Is there a heart?
It's still a heart. I do enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's 3 stars and a heart. I think if I'm rank ordering, like if I'm flick charting it, it's probably below this one.
Yeah. I think that's
right.
Well, yeah, I have to struggle. Like, do I still like Patriot Games better?
Or is the Keira Knightley factor?
Yeah. I don't know.
How much does that buoy?
That's the trick for me. Like, which one ends up at the bottom? It's either Shadow Recruit or Patriot Games.
Yeah.
Anyway, this will average out to 3.25 and a heart, which will round up to 3.5 over on our account on Letterboxd, which is at The Next Reel. You can find me there at Soda Creek Film. You can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So what did you think about The Sum of All Fears? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we'll be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
All right, I think you should go first because I went first last week, and fair is fair.
All right. I've got a 3.5 by Matt Thomas, who says, Affleck deserved the opportunity to play Jack Ryan a few more times. Although not a perfect film, this is still hugely entertaining, tense, and full of great set pieces that uses dialogue as effectively as it does explosions. One of the better brinksmanship films. Which makes me want to ask, now, would it make sense to see Affleck return in some capacity as Ryan? I mean, maybe not with the show and stuff, but could you see Affleck being brought back again to play Ryan now, do you think, as we were talking about in this episode, he's aged into a place where you could actually buy him easier in the role?
I thought you were still reading the review.
Oh.
That was like the longest setup. Okay. I don't know where one ended and the other began, so I'll just pretend I'm answering both of you. 100% I could see that. I absolutely do. I think we've already talked about, legislated that Ben Affleck older is better.
Yeah.
And I think he's a more competent, confident actor, and he understands production of a film as a really talented director, and I could totally see him taking on an older Jack Ryan role in some capacity. I would see that movie.
Yeah. I would be very curious to see how that would play out. I think it could be pretty interesting. Yeah.
I mean, he'll never get the shot at it, but I could see it happen.
All right.
So is that it? Are you done? Or is there more? Are we coming back around? Okay.
No, that's it. Yeah.
This one, this is a 3-star from Will Menaker with, there's too many, it's a little bit long, but there are too many things I love in it. Very satisfying dumb guy movie where neo-fascists use an Israeli nuke to flatten Baltimore, killing all of your favorite characters from The Wire. McNutty, Herc, Carver, Bunk, Omar, Bubbles, Prop Joe, they're all dead now. This is probably the most purely Tom Clancy of all the film adaptations of his work, despite swapping out the Arab terrorists of the book with a cabal of fascist academics. This still lets him indulge in his primary fetish, portraying Russia as a country of dim, backstabbing clowns and getting off imagining the U.S. almost engaging in a nuclear exchange with them. There's also a funny part toward the end where Jack Ryan is begging someone at the Pentagon to let him do his job as a CIA analyst, which he describes as getting the right information to the people in power who would make the right choice if only they knew what he does. This movie came out in 2002, LOL. Classic. Another classic from Will Menaker.
So funny. So funny. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Thanks, Letterboxd.
Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Hemp Foods European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.